Once you're relatively satisfied with your understanding of the relationships that are currently in play, causing the situation to be what it is, the strategy that you develop actually represents a set of alterations to the structure of those relationships, or the addition of new relationships, or altering them in certain ways so that they migrate the current situation in the direction of the desired alternative. Now, as you have developed the the network of relationships, you have come to have a better understanding of why things are the way they are, and there may be new thoughts about what's possible, so that the ideal alternative might have to be redefined. Um, since this whole process is a trial and learning process, and I think I mentioned before that at any point you may have learned things that warrant redefining the things that you've done previously. It's, um, you only get it right the first time if you have a, a very working crystal ball, I think. So you once you have this set of relationships, you study them and you figure out how altering the relationships will alter the behavior of that set of relationships. Now, one thing that one could do quite readily is simply reduce the desired support readiness. That would alleviate a lot of the problems so that, if you're not trying to accomplish so much, then you don't have so much of a problem. That's probably not good for the organization and not good for the customers. One might decide, or the typical thing that's done in this situation is that management issues an edict simply saying that other organizations are not allowed to hire from support. That essentially breaks this connection, and that's really good for support, but it's not good for the other organizations. The comment previously made about you seek to find ways so that whatever changes you do actually improve the overall operation of everything. The so one might actually decide to tell the other organizations they can't hire support for a while as you change the guidance under which support operates, in that you give them additional budget and tell them to hire additional people, hire more people than they need, with the understanding that once they get them trained, the other organizations are going to benefit from the effort that supports. So you're essentially changing the 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 rules under which support itself operates. So it's supposed to support the customer and train additional staff to support the whole organization. Support could get out of a mode of believing that they're the only ones responsible for supporting the customer. They could implement a knowledge base so that customers could look in the knowledge base and find solutions to some of their own problems, as opposed to interacting directly with support. One could use that knowledge base to figure out what's causing the majority of the problems that customers are calling about, and producing the greatest load on support, and get engineering to figure out how to engineer those problems out of existence so that they don't happen anymore. One could actually integrate the users into the support function so that users contribute to the knowledge base and support other users, so that Network Magic and the customers get to benefit from the customer's own experience and learning. So those are all things that one could do, and the question then becomes which one is the appropriate thing to do. Well, typically the appropriate thing to do is almost all of them. though almost all of them sequenced in an order that makes sense in terms of what the organization can fund and staff, so that they actually have a possibility of being successful. Uh, my experience is that an organization will typically identify a half a dozen things such as that all seem appropriate, and then they attempt to do them all at once, and it's simply a road to failure because they don't have the resources or the funding to do them all at once. So none of them actually get the level of attention that they should get. So that maybe what's appropriate is for the organization to say, all right, other organizations can't hire from support for the next 2 months while support hires more people that they need and train them. And after that, we will lift the ban. And as soon as we begin to get that in place, support is also hiring additional people so that they can begin work on the knowledge base so that the customers can access the knowledge base. And once we begin to get the knowledge base up and running, we will integrate the customer into the support function. And as the knowledge base develops, we will begin to use that to identify which problems are creating the greatest loading on support, and we'll feed that to engineering so that they can figure out how to engineer those support problems out of the equation. So it ends up being a sequencing of the numerous things that make sense, though trying to do them all at once is a sure road to failure. The fly in the ointment here, though, is that Spencer Johnson wrote an interesting book in the 80s called The 1 Minute Salesperson, and there's a quote in it that I thought was most profound. The quote is, "While almost everyone loves to buy, almost no one likes to be sold." If this strategy is to be successful, the learning has to be experienced by all of the relevant stakeholders, and they have to discover the strategy and own the implementation plan if it has any chance of being successful. Sort of, you can't do it for them. They have to figure out how to do it themselves. Otherwise, they won't do it. The what is about what is to be undertaken has to be meaningful from their perspective. And as I said, they have to discover and own the strategy. Otherwise, the worst thing in the world is to have a consultant come in, figure all this out, present it to the organization, the result of which typically means that whatever the report is ends up on the shelf and nothing ever happens in the future. It may take longer and be more painful for the organization to figure it out themselves, though it ends up having a far better chance of being successful. Now, as a resource attached to this segment, there's a paper by Donella Meadows called Leverage Points, which is a brilliant piece of work that provides a set of guidance as to 12 different areas or ways to look at a set of relationships to identify the types of changes that might be appropriate. It's sort of a checklist to walk through, saying, are there these kinds of things that we could do or these kinds of things that we do? And I highly recommend it. I think it's only 9 or 10 pages, but it's as I said, it's a brilliant piece of work. So hope you found this informative, and I'll see you in the next segment. Bye.